parent. But I'm the parent. I'm to blame. What did I do wrong? How do I fix it? I must have been a bad parent. I'm confused. Who can help? I suppose these things you've heard a few times in supporting someone with an eating disorder. So what sort of responses have you given to the carers, the support person? Nothing!
The issue of the am I to blame, you know, because as a parent you feel so responsible for what happens, whether it's an eating disorder or something else. You feel kind of that strong sense of responsibility, and guilt can be the middle name of something that seems to be going wrong or just not perfectly or whatever. So I reckon that's a real bind for a parent, is the sort of feeling like, well, I'm maybe they're to blame. And so you want to kind of reassure them that that's not to blame, and it's not helpful to be blamed, and you want to reduce that whole blame experience. But then you also want them at some point you want to be able to engage with them so that you can look at, well, what might be the things that are kind of sustaining any sort of illness or and keeping the illness going. So it's really difficult. It's quite a challenging therapeutic place to be in, and you can either either do something good that keeps people working with you, or somehow they can get the wrong, they can feel very uncomfortable and not come back. So it's tricky.
And I think that's where, as therapists or treatment services, it's really hard to be, as I said before, providing this sort of support to the support people, the families, the parents, the partners of somebody with an eating disorder, because you're so close into it already in providing the support to the person with the illness. And yes, I know that the family therapy approach and all that is really good, and it works quite well in some instances, but I think that's where sometimes encouraging families to seek information and attend workshops that are external to what you're providing reinforces the messages you're sending, also enables them to be educated from a different arena, so they're not feeling as though perhaps they're being judged, assessed, bombarded, or the bad parent.
Helen, I was just struck by that, there was a sort of slightly silent response to your question before, and I was actually thinking, I wonder how families would react to a silent response from treatment. that in itself may actually reinforce that sense of blame. And so even our silence in not responding to families is just going to create that kind of that feeling of blame and shame that kind of floats in the ether around eating disorders.
Exactly right. Receiving no information is almost as deadly as...
Yeah, receiving no information is really bad. The long silence is very difficult.
I was silent, but I wanted to actually contribute something about an email conversation I had with her mother, who had actually been in contact with the EDV, and also found me online, and we had a chat about, she was very much coming from, how do I fix it? This is a problem, what can I do about it? And when my communication to her in that email, or through that email chain, was about, okay, so you're a mother, you're doing the right thing, saying, yep, I know you're concerned, I know that you want to support your daughter because that's what all good mothers, you're a good mother, and that's what all the good mothers want to do. So what, reinforcing for her that her daughter's doing the best that she can, using the best strategies that she knows how, and sort of shifting the mother's focus from what can I do, how do I fix it, to okay, how can I understand my daughter, and how can I support her so that she can find better strategies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important for families or anyone who's supporting a person with an eating disorder, because we have quite a few partners of people coming in too. In fact, that's increased astronomically in the last 12 months. It's good in one way, but it's also concerning. That for them to be able to understand that the steps, even if they're only small, that a person who is trying to recover, who is trying to deal with the emotional aspects of an eating disorder, is taking. It's going to be slow, it's not going to be the speed at which you want, but you still have to acknowledge them, you still have to be there to encourage what they're doing that is in the right direction. And that is something that people struggle with, support people struggle with. I love this. I'm going to let you just read that one. Now that's from Off the Cuff, which is another publication. Oh, the capital C there. Another publication that I know Beth Shelton from CEED has done a lot of work on and that sort of thing. The approach, I'm reading this one at the moment, and the approach between Nancy Zucker and Janet Treasure is very similar in the way that they do things. One's just come out of the UK and one's come out of the US. So how can you support a support person? Hear their concerns. Okay? Listen to what their concerns are and the impact that the process of recovery is having on the parents, the siblings. I think sometimes the siblings get overlooked, and that's a real difficulty for families. The parents get so caught up in trying to support the person with the illness that often the siblings don't always get heard or noticing what's going on. Affirm the need for education and training in relation to eating disorders through reading and workshops. So we've got a reading list on EDV website and details of workshops that we're running. Please feel free to direct families there, because if we find that there's a need in a particular area out of Metro Melbourne and we get quite a few people interested, we will run workshops wherever we can for carers, for the support person. Encourage them to participate in support groups, because if they learn about other people's experiences, they hear what's happening to others, they get a better understanding, they feel less isolated, and it has a certain level of normalising what's going on, although what's happening isn't normal. I'm not suggesting that, but in that realm of what's happening, it does make a difference in bringing things into a normal realm for them at the time, and provide our details. Now this is just to give you an overview of what is contained in the Building Hope workshops for carers. So we cover things like emotional intelligence, managing change, and that's a really difficult one for anybody, but for carers particularly. There was a comment by a psychologist recently to me at a meeting that they had read the book and thought that the book was very basic, and I said, well, yeah, that's good, because parents haven't had 5-10 years of psychology training and interaction. They need the basics, Hey, seems just mildly obvious, but so facilitating change talk and how to do it for families is very difficult. Getting them to try and turn something that's been a negative into a positive, even if it's only as far as affirming somebody, saying, oh, that must have been really hard for you to tell me that, and I really appreciate it. It's simple things like that they don't know it's going to help. The communication. For ages I've been talking to families about calm, caring, concise communication. It is important, instead of losing your temper, instead of blaming the person, instead of assuming that the person is deliberately out there doing a particular behaviour. They're not, as we know. But families don't know that. They don't understand it. They look at the person who's been their child for X years and think that that is that person's, they've had a personality change. And getting a deeper understanding of what actually is going on makes a difference to them and hence to the person with the illness. Positive affirmations, open questions. Sometimes parents are so busy telling the person with the eating disorder, oh, you're this and you're that, but they don't know about open questions, many of them. I won't say all, because there are parents out there who have got an idea of what to do and how to do things. But the majority that I have met don't. And that's purely because they haven't been provided with the information and the education on it. And the reflective listening. I'm a parent with 3 daughters. I think there's a few parents in the room. And there are times when I thought I've been really listening to what's being said, and later on I've picked myself up on, maybe I wasn't after all. And some parents, when you're in this stressful situation of somebody with an illness that to them is life-threatening, especially if it's anorexia, but even if it's bulimia, parents being concerned at what damage is being done internally by somebody who's purging 5, 6, 10 times a day. They're so stressed at the likelihood of somebody dying that a lot of this stuff doesn't even, they're not aware of it, but they couldn't even practice it unless they were able to calm themselves down. So that is another part of what the workshops provide to carers. That ability and need to take a step back to be able to view things a little better. That is going to be constructive and helpful.
Can I just ask? Pause.
It's open questions.
Does it say?
Yes, it does, and at this point I've forgotten. You'll have to excuse me. I knew it off by heart. I should know it, but the brain is not functioning at its peak today. Anybody else answer that? It's open, reflective. That's it. Thank you. Summary. Thank you. There you go. It's an acronym of the motivation. We also talk about carer stress and getting them to acknowledge what they're experiencing, how they're not coping or how they are coping. We look at things that they can have some impact on and other areas that they need to learn to accept. It's quite an intensive workshop, and the carers who have been along to it have found it to be informative, constructive. Some are attending it for a second time because they just need to have that reinforcing of some aspects of the learning. They feel like they've finally got some idea of what's going on for the person with the illness. There's a family that came to the one we ran in April. Their son has had bulimia for 10 years, and the parents said, we've basically gone, oh, this is too hard, we don't know how to do this, he won't go to the doctors, and they've been playing ostrich. They've come along to the workshops, and I've met with them a few times, and they've taken a completely different approach, and the son has gone, oh, somebody's taking notice effectively, and the behaviours that they've managed to encourage him to change has been enormous. He is not purging the same as he was. He's talking to them about the food levels, the types of foods to have in the house and what helps and what doesn't. He's coming in and talking to them about the emotional things as to why he's coming in a bad mood and what's going on, and they know how to respond. So in the space of 4 months, they've made quite significant inroads into changing their relationship with their son, who, when I saw them last week, is now considering going to see a GP. I just think that's an amazing change for them, even if it helps 1 or 2 families to see the different ways of doing things.
That was my question about the, I guess, family uptake from that. What's the rate so far of families taking up these strategies and actually implementing them?
From the workshops that we've run so far with the carers we've had attend, they have all taken them up to A level, some not probably to the extent that you would hope, but that's purely because they're their own comfort zones or lack thereof. So they're still making contact, they're still getting support from us. You know, they'll ring and they'll say, oh, you know, I've been trying X, Y, Z. And so they check in with people. So if they've got someone that they can check in with, they'll try the next step, or they'll attend a second workshop if it's available to them, not too far to travel. But we have people travelling down from Shepparton to attend the workshop in Flemington in April. People are really, parents out there are really hungry for information on how to do this. How do I support someone? How do I encourage them? How do I get them to go and see the GP? And then, how do I not feel like I need to be taking every step for them. And I think that's an important thing they need to learn, is that they're not the ones to be, if they're older, making the phone calls to book the appointments necessary, but encouraging them to participate and going along with them if that's what they would like. It's that sort of thing, as well as learning the communication skills.
When is your next workshop?
There's some brochures outside. We've got one running in Bendigo at the moment. We've got, there are 6 weeks, by the way. It's 2 hours once a week for 6 weeks. We've got one commencing in Malvern and Glen Iris in September, and we've got one running in Ballarat shortly as well. So we're trying to take them out to where we think people are going to find and have the need, where there's a need. The other thing that we found quite difficult, and as many as the parents who come along and learn this stuff, and one of the nice things in the Janet Treasure skills-based stuff is a lot of it works on animal metaphors. And you should see the parents get into the animal metaphors. Oh, you know, if it was that simple, if everything was that simple, they just, oh, yes, I'm a rhinoceros, yes, I'm a... And they keep going through the different ones. And it's getting them to understand where they're at in their behaviours using the animal metaphors and trying to bring them more in to a central point of being a little bit of a jellyfish sometimes, an ostrich occasionally, a rhino, depending. So trying to limit their extreme behaviours, I guess, and responses. Any comments?
I just think that sounds like quite a funny way to address extreme behaviours.
Yes.
There's generally not a lot of humour in it.
Get out of the sand.
We have a lot of
Stop
fun.
being so weak. That's another way of doing it, which is quite funny.
And it's not as targeted. You're not feeling as though, oh, I have been a bad parent because I've behaved this way or that way.
They're amazingly effective at just being very accurate about the behaviours. You know, people look at that animal and how well it sums up that particular behaviour.
I think the imagery is strong, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they start drawing pictures of the sort of animal they are when they combine them.
Yes.
It's an interesting creature. I'm not going to go into this bit, but on your handouts there is a list of myths. And probably you all know what the myths are, but we are, part of what our job is to myth bust. And so I've incorporated in this, so you might want to share it with other people that aren't so familiar with eating disorders and the things that aren't real about eating disorders. So feel free to hand on any of these myths, there are a few sheets, to others to help them in their knowledge. Any questions? Any comments?
I work for the Northern Area Mental Health Service, and we've managed to be able to get some funding for carers to attend that workshops through the carers link network. So
Where
I
from?
might think about. Sorry.
Where from? Where did you get the funding from?
So there's a carer support fund
Yeah.
within our network, and so we did an application to fund our carer to attend the session.
Commonwealth Carer Respite Centres have funding under the in their mental health department or section. Workers can actually access funds to pay for carers to attend workshops such as this or other things as well. So if you're not sure of what's possible, Google Commonwealth Carer Respite Centres or ring, is it 1300?
I'm not sure.
I can't remember, no.
But you can sometimes
But,
get
yeah.
assistance for travel costs as well. If you
Yeah.
travel a long way.
So if they've got a distance to come, that's possible too under the carers fund, carers brokerage.
Are they expensive workshops?
The workshops are $80 an individual or $120 a couple, and that's for 6 weeks. So we try to keep the costs down so it's manageable for people to attend, because we're aware that the cost of treatment for some families, even in the public health system, does create a lot of financial stress. But we don't believe in giving them for free either. So.
How big are the workshops generally?
We have a maximum of 20 people that we can take for any workshop. The one that we're running in Bendigo at the moment, we have 10 participants. The Malvern one is nearly at 20. The Greensborough is sitting at 12, I think, at the moment. And Ballarat really hasn't got, it's only just sort of being promoted out there currently. So, as I said, we're planning already for next year workshops for carers, and if we'll repeat some in some of the areas that we're running them this year, but we'd also like to be able to offer them to more rural areas as well. So if you come across a colleague who's working in a rural area where you think it might work, or you can get a few organisations working together to get in touch with carers, we're more than happy to entertain running one in the region that you're coming from.
I'm curious, do you find that the carers who attend these workshops are generally pretty open already to stepping outside their comfort zone?
No, not necessarily. We've had some quite, we had a couple come along to the Flemington one where the mother came and the father wasn't coming, and he thought it was not worthwhile. But the mother went home and said to him, "You need to come." And he came the first night and he was quite disgruntled at the whole thing, because for him it wasn't moving fast enough. But he came back the following week and all of a sudden the penny started to drop, and he walked out of there saying, "Oh God, I'm glad I came, now I get it." So it takes a few weeks and they need to persevere. And we talk about the time frames it's going to take for some of the stuff to go through, but yeah, no, the response from those who have been resistant has been really good at the end. And hopefully we'll be running them on a more regular basis next year. Carers really do benefit from, apart from the learning that they're getting, being able to apply it. So the workshops are very much interactive. They're able to talk in groups about their situation. They have to practice with each other on affirmations, and we actually put them in a situation where we divide them into groups, and one side have to be the person with the illness and the others have to be the parents responding. So they get to practice. They know what their loved ones say. So they're quite adept at being able to blurt out something that's quite nasty or, meant to keep the parents at arm's length. And so then the parents on the other side have to practice what is their response going to be, how are they going to do this. So there's a lot of role playing, a lot of practice that's involved for them so they can feel more comfortable in the skills that they're learning.
Do any young people come along, as in the patients?
No, we don't have people with the illness attend.
What about siblings?
Yes, we have siblings come along.
What sort of the minimum age that we would expect people to have to come along, and if they're younger, is there anything that the foundation offers for younger children to sort of understand what's happening to their older brother or sister?
We don't at the moment, but I'd love to. We've sort of said 18, but if the sibling is coming along with the parent, like if it's a 16-year-old coming with a parent to the workshop, that would be fine, but we wouldn't accept them on their own.
The other thing I was meaning to ask, is there anything that the foundation does in terms of prevention? I understand there's support for people who are already affected. Does the foundation go out and does sort of any education in schools? Yes. Or anything? Yep.
We do. We're quite heavily engaged in working with teachers, coaches, gyms. We have this year taken on actually working directly with students, but we're very mindful we don't talk about eating disorders. It's all about building self-esteem, resilience, encouraging people that, talking to an adult if you have concerns, or talking to somebody if you have concerns about how you're feeling, what your emotional state is at any one time. So we don't talk about eating disorders, we do the resilience building stuff instead. And we've got an education officer, Naomi Crafty, who's a psychologist, and she runs the education in the schools and in other areas with teachers and coaches. We're working with gym, as in like Fitness First and the YWCA and places like that. We've done a lot of training with them. And we're heavily involved in the prevention, working with various government departments on issues around the prevention of eating disorders and body image.
Helen, I was interested in the staffing levels and
Because you see, you're doing a great job and a big job.
We have, technically, I'm the only full-time person there. Our CEO is, well, she is full-time, but she's not always in the office. She works from home a bit as well on meetings. We have an admin person who is 4 days a week. Our volunteer support person who is on a 9-day fortnight. Our recovery officer, so that's a person who actually meets with and talks to people who are looking at what options they have to start and get better, or acknowledging that they have a problem. She works 3 days a week. There are 7 of us, and we work a different number of days. So we try to fit in a lot with the number of staff we have. And we have a media person, as well as our education officer, so yeah.
And your funding is from the government? Or?
Yes, DHS fund us, although we have lately been, this year and last year, successful in securing some grants from a few philanthropic organisations, one of which Lord Mayor's one enabled my position to become full-time. And unless we get the funding the next 2 years, we're going to be back to 3 days a week max. So yeah, it makes a difference on what we can do, like it does for everybody. Yeah. And the service that we provide when it comes to providing support and information to people who are trying to recover and families or carers is free. We don't charge.
What are the links or connections between the Butterfly Foundation and Eating Disorders Victoria?
We're 2 different organisations in that we take a different approach. We provide the information support and advocacy, etc. However, Butterfly do more of the fundraising and funding of people being able to receive treatment, and they also work on advocacy issues as well.
And probably the other distinction is that EDV is a government-funded consumer care organisation, and the Butterfly Foundation is a kind of private charity.
Yeah.
And then there's the Butterfly program.
Yes, that's because they provided, the Butterfly Foundation has provided about 50% of the funding for that service.
Yeah, that comes out of
I
Monash.
thought it was totally done by Monash, but
No,
It's a partnership.
Yeah, it's been extended for another 12 months. Butterfly Day program. So we are a non-clinical, non-treatment service at EDV. We are not allowed to provide under our DHS guidelines any form of treatment.
And so since we're talking about relationships, what's the relationship with CEED then with those other two?
We're sort of a sister organisation. We're a support agency for public sector treatment services, and we've always worked pretty much in close collaboration with EDV, and possibly in a way grew out of EDV really. The consumer care organisation used to do a lot of support for clinicians and kind of advocacy for treatment too, and I think it was in the early 2000s that the government decided to fund separately and set up CEED, and then there's brought CEED to specifically focus on building service and access in the public sector of mental health. So that kind of targets us now, but we definitely work in collaboration.
That's my story.
I'm sure we could talk for another hour or a couple of hours really around these issues. I'd just like to bring it back to our service development kind of perspective, because that's an important role for CEED and the service to be thinking about. And it seems that I'm hearing things about how we have the responsibility to be thinking about how we can give a pathway to GPs, how we can support them through our primary mental health teams, how we can help our triage workers to have answers for families and GPs when they ring contacting. Who are the people who are going to be best supported by our services? And if there are people who might be best supported elsewhere, how are we going to inform families and GPs about where that might be? That we have responsibilities within our areas to be thinking about that. And once a person enters a service, how are different tiers of the service going to be supporting one another to help clients with complex problems on their journey towards recovery. So I'd just like to draw that in as the conclusion there, and I'd really like to thank both Helen and Beth for all their input today, because it's been really fantastic to hear us.
Also enables them to be educated from a different arena, so they're not feeling as though perhaps they're being judged, assessed, bombarded, or the bad parent.
Helen, I was just struck by that, there was a sort of slightly silent response to your question before, and I was actually thinking, I wonder how families would react to a silent response from treatment. that in itself may actually reinforce that sense of blame. And so even our silence in not responding to families is just going to create that kind of that theme of blame and shame that kind of floats in the ether around eating disorders.
Exactly right. Receiving no information is almost as deadly as...
Yeah, receiving no information is really bad. The long silence is really
I was silent, but I wanted to actually contribute something about an email conversation I had with her mother, who had actually been in contact with the EDV, and also found me online, and we had a chat about, she was very much coming from, how do I fix it?
So, from a parent, but I'm the parent. I'm to blame. What did I do wrong? How do I fix it? I must have been a bad parent. I'm confused. Who can help? I suppose these things you've heard a few times in supporting someone with an eating disorder. So what sort of responses have you given to the carers, the support person? Nothing!
The issue of the am I to blame, because as a parent you feel so responsible for what happens, whether it's an eating disorder or something else. You feel kind of that strong sense of responsibility, and guilt can be the middle name of something that's seemingly going wrong or just not perfectly or whatever. So I reckon that's a real bind for a parent, is the sort of feeling like, well, I'm maybe they're to blame. And so you want to kind of reassure them that that's not to blame, and it's not helpful to be blamed, and you want to kind of reduce that whole blame experience. But then you also want them at some point you want to be able to engage.
So concerning. That for them to be able to understand that the steps, even if they're only small, that a person who is trying to recover, who is trying to deal with the emotional aspects of an eating disorder, is taking. It's going to be slow, it's not going to be the speed at which you want, but you still have to acknowledge them, you still have to be there to encourage what they're doing that is in the right direction. And that is something that people struggle with, support people struggle with. I love this, I'm going to let you just read that one. Now that's from Off the Cuff, which is another publication. Oh, I can't see there. Another pub.
This is a problem. What can I do about it? And when my communication to her in that email, or through that email chain, was about, okay, so you're a mother, you're doing the right thing, saying, yep, I know you're concerned, I know that you want to support your daughter because that's what all good, you're a good mother, and that's what all the good mothers want to do. So what, reinforcing for her that her daughter's doing the best that she can, using the best strategies that she knows how, and sort of shifting the mother's focus from what can I do, how do I fix it, to okay, how can I understand my daughter, and how can I support her so that she can find better strategies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important for families or anyone who's supporting a person with an eating disorder, because we have quite a few partners of people coming into it. In fact, that's increased astronomically in the last 12 months. It's good in one way, but it's also
them so that you can look at, well, what might be the things that are kind of sustaining any sort of illness or and keeping the illness going. So it's really difficult.
Double-edged
It's
knife.
quite a challenging therapeutic place to be in, and you can either keep people, you either do something good that keeps people working with you, or somehow they can get the wrong, they can feel very uncomfortable and not come back. So it's tricky.
And I think that's where, as therapists or treatment services, it's really hard to be, as I said before, providing this sort of support to the support people, the families, the parents, the partners of somebody with an eating disorder, because you're so close into it already in providing the support to the person with the illness. And yes, I know the family therapy approach and all that is really good, and it works quite well in some instances, but I think that's where sometimes encouraging families to seek information and attend workshops that are external to what you're providing reinforces the messages you're sending